it's difficult to comment on this without like a psychological background or a sociological background or anything like that. But I don't think Anissa just has. I don't think that she would have done this necessarily without Morgan, but I also don't think Morgan would have done this without Anissa.
Yeah, it's one of these perfect storm situations. So do you think even if Slenderman hadn't been, like, say this was the pre-internet age, this would have still happened? They would have just latched onto some other myth or legend?
It may have been. The idea I had in my head was I don't remember which one's mother it was, but they were talking about how they saw that their daughter was looking at horror stories on the internet, and they're like, well, I didn't think it was that odd because when I was 11, I was walking home from the library with Stephen King's It in my backpack, so I enjoyed some horror stories at that level too. So my immediate thought was, if we didn't have Slenderman, would it just be like It or something like that? Would it just be some other horror story like creature that they might have been drawn to? That would have encouraged this.
Hello and welcome to Trolling with Logic, the podcast where we bring the hammer down on ignorance, pseudoscience, and unreason, or is it superstition somewhere in there? On a bi-weekly basis, I am your host, Nathan Dickey, and with me is Cal.
Hi, it's good to be back. Can't remember last time we've been on, but it is good to be here again.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple months, and we have veteran TWL member Lundy back with us again for this episode.
Always good to be back with my favorite people that I love to bullshit and call things stupid with. It's fucking fantastic.
I can't remember last time I was on a show with you, Lundy. It has been years, hasn't it?
It's at least since one of our charity shows. I'm pretty sure that was the charity show we did 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure was the last time we were on together.
All right. Bloody hell.
Not that we don't still fucking chat every once in a while.
We still
we haven't done this.
We haven't been on the show together. Yeah.
Yeah, our show with Phil Ferguson was the first time I was on with Lundy. So
yeah, and wasn't that great? Neither one of us had the slightest clue as to what the fuck he was talking about half the time.
It turned out well. I think it turned out all right at the end.
Yep. Yeah, I guess it was fortunate for us that he turned to an easier topic like atheism and away from the big adult stuff like money.
It's I am terribly sorry. I don't understand anything about stock markets and investments. I don't. Sorry.
When he was giving us that concordance-like quiz, let me ask you a question and see if you can figure it out. And we were both
nope. Weird thing is, I was actually kind of close with one of my guesses, though, because he was like, "Do you want to know how much money that's going to amount to?" And I'm like, "I don't know, $1 million." He's like, 900,000. I'm like, "Oh."
Anyway, shall we go back on track then?
Yeah. So
yeah, sure.
Today we're actually talking about a good documentary this time, which is a rarity for us. Sometimes we watch good things and talk about them. Actually, this is the first
Well, I'm probably going to preface this that it's easier to talk about bad ones because there's just so much to tear apart and analyze. And when you get a good documentary that you agree with, it doesn't really get you thinking. But this one did. It will make you think, and there's a lot of issues that arise from this documentary we're going to talk about.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to unpack. The documentary we're talking about is Beware the Slender Man, and it's a documentary that came out last year from HBO Films. A really good producer of real quality documentaries, in my opinion. And this particular documentary, Beware the Slender Man, is all about the Slender Man stabbing, which happened in May of 2014. So the story behind this is that in the city of Waukesha, Wisconsin, two 12-year-old girls lured another girl of the same age into the surrounding forest and stabbed her 19 times. And their motivation in doing this was, according to them, the fictional creepypasta wiki character Slenderman and the stories that were going around on the internet about this mythical character on the creepypasta website. And they took it to heart, took it very seriously, and believed that Slenderman is real and that he was, according to their account, he ordered them to murder this girl. And if they wouldn't, he would kill them and their family.
I should point out that only applies actually to the one girl, Morgan, because she believed she has, as will be gone over in the documentary, she has a severe schizophrenia, and that's developed since she was 3. And this caused her to believe that there are things that exist that are talking to her and saying things to her all the time. And so she was the one who actually believed that Slenderman was not only real, but that she had actually seen him and met him, and he has spoken to her and the like. The other girl was more of the sort of assuming kind. She, as far as like their motivations were concerned, she just felt like it was something, the stabbing of their friend was something that they just had to do to appease Slenderman.
Because she didn't personally, the other girl, Anissa, she didn't personally encounter Slenderman in any hallucinatory way. She just believed her friend, basically.
Right.
Yeah, I think because you see the interviews, I think the word they use is that they would be proxies for Slenderman if they carried. That's the word they kept using.
That was one of the stories that was going around. Actually, it was involved in a lot of different stories. It was kind of like evolved into the canon of Slenderman around that time, which was that he would use normal people as proxies to do the things that he wanted accomplished. And they felt that if they killed their friend, then they would prove themselves worthy of being his proxies, and then they could go live with him in his mansion that exists that apparently exists somewhere.
No, they said it existed way out in the woods where they did the stabbing.
Oh, no. Like it was in the Nicolay Forest, which was a 4 or 5 hour drive away.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And they attempted to walk that distance, or they were planning on walking that distance to get there.
Was that where they were picked up? Did they just walk away and...
I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly how far they got, but they were walking in that direction.
Okay, because I remember the girl that actually got stabbed. It's a miracle she survived, because they said it was quite literally millimeters away from her heart, one of the stabs. They said it was just ever so slightly to one side. Yeah, she'd be dead now.
Yeah, to be stabbed 19 times and none of them hitting a major artery that causes her to just bleed out in seconds, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, because if I recall correctly from the accounts, they actually said to her, "Oh, we're going to get help right now." They said that to her and then they left. So there is one thing that's not clear: was either of these girls the instigator? Like, was one of them leading the other, or were they just both willing part? It seems to be under a lot of dispute. Like, the parents of each side believe, it's quite natural you're going to believe that if your child's involved in something like this.
I had the impression that Morgan was the instigator of it, and she had the idea was hers. And she talked her friend into it, but
we're going to be watching it anyway, so we can probably comment on that afterwards. Or during it, whatever.
Yeah, but her friend Anissa, the other impression you get from the documentary is that even though Morgan was the instigator of the idea or the initiator of the idea, she relied on Anissa to talk her into it. It was like she was like Anissa was like her support structure, because Morgan wanted Anissa to do the stabbing, but Anissa couldn't go through with it, and so Morgan ended up doing it. Yeah.
And as far as the opinions of the girl who was actually stabbed is concerned, I think she said that she wanted Morgan to go to jail forever because she was the one who actually did the stabbing, and she wanted Anissa to go to jail, but just not as long.
Because that's the other curious thing. Although we're talking about this, the case is still underway because there's been a lot of legal wrangling falling out. I think the main issue was whether these two girls were fit to stand trial.
Well, stand trial as either adults or as juveniles.
Yeah,
that was kind of the main thing.
Yeah, because it's on that bloody line at 12 years old. I mean, they obviously understand what they're doing, but is an adult punishment really appropriate for girls? for these girls.
Plus, there's also the question of whether or not, at the very least, Morgan truly understood what she was doing.
Yeah.
Considering her intense delusions.
Yeah, because it's one of the most kind of unsettling parts of the whole documentary is you actually see the police interview footage, and it's just these girls are so matter of fact. It's almost like they're relaying what they had for lunch that day when they're describing what they did.
Yeah.
Like there's absolutely zero kind of concern or anything. It's really unsettling footage to watch that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so we might as well go into like, Lundy, do you know much about the history of Slenderman exactly? Can you give us?
Oh yeah, I have been and still am a huge creepypasta aficionado. I've enjoyed it for quite some time, and Slenderman has been there since I'm pretty sure 2009. As the documentary will go over, it started off with it just being a Photoshop contest on the Something Awful forums, which is just like try and make something that is totally unrealistic seem real in a picture. And the idea for the person who did the Slenderman photos was, of course, Slenderman. So he made those photos, and the photos were so good and so realistic that people started to make some stories about them, like what is this creature in the background? Why does he wear a suit? And in one of the photos, it looks like his arms are so very long that they sort of end in points as opposed to hands, and the shadows around him kind of look like extra arms. So they added the idea that he has tentacles on his back. And because both of the pictures that he was in predominantly featured children either in a playground or in a line going to something, the idea was that he was an abductor of children. That's what the canon became. Afterwards, a lot of different stories were written about him to a very strange degree at some points. Like there were some erotic stories made about him, which was a little odd. There were stories about how he was actually a protector of children as well. Like if a child was like heavily abused at home, he would come by and offer them a new place to go where their parents would never find them again. That was another sort of almost, I would say, half canonized part of Slenderman, because it's still kind of left up, at least as far as the fandom's concerned, to interpretation as to whether or not that's what he actually does. Because the idea is a little bit more interesting if we don't know whether or not he's supposed to act as a good guy or a bad guy. So there's that. There's also the fact that, and this came after the stabbings, and this isn't related to Slenderman canon, but it is related to how people on the internet dealt with this at the time, at the very least on 4chan, I should say. And there's going to be, because there was a lot of fan art that was made of these girls with Slenderman.
Oh, yeah, because that's at the end of the documentary. They show some of it.
And on 4chan, it was even more disturbing because, like, the week that this story broke, there was erotic stories made about these 12-year-old girls and Slenderman on 4chan. And it's like, God damn it, 4chan, can you stop being the worst things on the internet? You know? But that's kind of an extra thing. So yeah, the history of Slenderman, the photos, then canonizes basically a child abductor of some sort. And then when they mentioned the proxies, that's something that actually happened fairly recently at the time in which this happened. It was very late 2013, early 2014 that this sort of entered into the sort of quote unquote canon of Slenderman in general. And it's really difficult to pin down the canon of Slenderman because he is an internet myth legend creature thing. Anyone can write any story about him. But the idea of proxies started to become a lot more mainstream around that time. And the idea was that Slenderman himself doesn't appear to people that often unless it's a person he's directly taking, but he also needs other people to work for him to sort of help create a fear of him, a general fear, or at the very least the idea that he exists, because that's something that sort of got created around that time as well, is that if you don't believe that he exists, he can't affect you. Then he can't do anything to you. So he would use proxies to sort of help develop this sort of fear or at least knowledge of his existence. So that's where these girls kind of got that. It was a very recent thing that was added into the Slenderman canon. And I think that's the most of it. The only other things that I can really remember is that there's really no explanation for the suit that he wears. That's just kind of a thing that everyone just kind of accepted. And there's also the fact that the fact that he doesn't have a face and the like. There's a couple different story ideas for that. One is that he's just a being who has existed since like the dawn of time, and he's not human, he's not anything, he's just this like godlike creature. So he doesn't have a face because he doesn't have any particular identity, I guess. And there's another one where he's like the failed experiment of some government program. That one makes me laugh the most. And then the last one is that he's an alien of some sort and he crash landed on Earth like a long ass time ago.
Well, it seems like all these explanations for his origins kind of misses the point of what Slenderman is supposed to be. Like the fact that he's faceless is symbolic of the fact that Slenderman is a blank slate that anybody can project anything onto, and he doesn't have any clearly defined facts about him as far as his origin. He's just kind of an open book that anybody can write anything into, and that's part of the mystique and the mystery and the what makes Slenderman fearful. Not even just Slenderman, but just the idea of this purely internet created mythos in general. Like Slenderman embodies, I guess, internet memes, I guess. In that way, in which anyone can use him for any one particular purpose and interpret him in any one particular way. And it's all just as valid as each other because there was no original concept for him. He was just a figure in a picture to look weird and realistic. That's the only reason that he came to exist in the first place. Everything built on top of that is entirely created from whole cloth by the internet and sort of gathered together into this massive canon.
I was going to say, in a weird way, just the facelessness is that why he's kind of caught on so universally? It's almost like, I think Stan Lee once said about Spider-Man, anyone could be behind that mask, and that's why Spider-Man has such broad appeal. Yeah,
that's why a lot of the more like the superheroes who have like masks that cover like their entirety have an appeal on that front.
Yeah.
I will say that another thing that kind of like interested me very much in this documentary was Morgan's dad, when he was going over how his schizophrenia manifests. It won't leave me because it was pretty crazy. The way he explained it was, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I'm going to try and be as loyal to the original quote as possible. He said, for the most part, what I see on a day-to-day basis is just geometric shapes just sort of zooming about and going just going all in different directions. Though, and before I was diagnosed, I thought that was normal. I thought that was what everybody saw. Oh, and it wasn't a huge deal to me when I found out that that's not the way everybody else sees it. It's just like, oh, that's not how you see traffic lights? Well, that's different. But then there's also the occasional kind of frightening illusion that might come up where it's like a demon or a devil, and reasonably you can say to yourself like, okay, that's clearly not real. But there's just times where I know the devil is not in the backseat of my car, but the devil is totally in the backseat of my car.
Yeah, just can't ignore it. Yeah.
And the way in which he described it was so visceral to me that I just couldn't imagine living a life where I'm just seeing demons and shit. Like, especially when it applies to Morgan, who's been seeing these sort of weird images since she was 3. Like, she hasn't known a life that's not this. This is normal to her, is to see these different creatures and monsters and or people just talking to her, just saying things to her, just appearing in her dreams even, or in real life after the dreams. And to her, it's really difficult to explain, like, these things don't actually exist, because that's all she knows.
It's been normalized to her now.
Yeah. She's been doing it for, she's 14 now, I think.
15. Yeah.
14, 15, and she's been dealing with this since she was 3, and she wasn't diagnosed until she was almost 13. And the mother, when she was pointing out that she was diagnosed, it was kind of interesting, because she's like, and Morgan's not a dumb child. I have a feeling, like, the way in which she took the news was very like, okay, yeah, if it was anything, I'd probably guess that. So in a way, at least by her mother's account, in a way, she kind of knew that there was something not normal about her experience of the world. And that's, I don't know, like, just to imagine growing up from the very first memories I ever had, just seeing creatures and beings and things that don't actually exist in such a realistic way that unless I train my mind to understand that those aren't real, I wouldn't know. I don't know how I would turn out.
And because she didn't have help, she didn't have anybody helping her to distinguish those things. Yeah, she was a lost cause almost.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, was Morgan the one the parents said when they grew up and they showed her Bambi, she had no reaction to her at the end?
Oh, that was Anissa.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't no reaction. It was an odd reaction.
They just said it wasn't the kind of usual reaction kids have.
Yeah, it was a weird one, because it wasn't like, oh my God, Bambi's mother just got shot. It wasn't that. She was more interested in telling Bambi to run and save himself, which if you're there at the time in which it happens, you might not think much about that.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, it becomes a lot stranger, because it becomes less about like, okay, so she knows that Bambi's mother got shot, but she's not really worried about that. She's just telling Bambi to just be selfish and just keep running.
She's processing it in a just really weird way.
Yeah. Like, she's not even worried about the fact that his mother got shot. She's like, that's an over and done with fact to her.
Yeah, and her mother used that as an example to point out that she suspected her daughter lacked empathy, maybe not completely, but at least to some extent.
Yeah, well, she just said that she found her daughter just to be a bit different to the other girls, but she didn't think that much of it at the time.
Yeah, I wonder. It's interesting to. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, you carry on there, Nathan.
Oh, it's interesting to think about how much retrofitting the parents are going through in trying to find or trying to remember instances in their children's past to make sense of what's going on in the present, and kind of.
I think that's going to be in response to a lot of public backlash they're getting. As the story comes out, a lot of people go, "Why didn't you see this? What's wrong with you?" And. We even saw that, like Nathan, microvlogger is, and it wasn't quite as aggressive as that, but he was saying, the whole that they let them on their iPads unsupervised. But he does say that they did know what they were doing on the iPads. It's just.
I didn't get the impression at all that the movie was blaming iPads.
No, I got the impression that it was Anissa's father who was blaming iPads.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know if that was just him saying, oh, well, I remember she did. But he was aware what was on the iPad, so. It's kind of one of those things. Is it just him kind of?
He was trying hard to justify himself and saying there wasn't. He was kind of. I suspect he was greatly exaggerating when he claimed that they had no privacy at all. Like everything they did was open to me, and I could see everything they do at all times, except when they're getting out of the shower. Other than that, I can see everything they're doing all the time.
Yeah, I suspect he was overestimating how much he was seeing, as most parents do.
Yeah, because I can't think of any 12-year-old that would be comfortable with that level of openness.
Yeah, he said no closed doors allowed in this house.
Yeah, because that's you just on the threshold of wanting your space, and adults are weird to you then.
Yeah, I honestly think that he was definitely overestimating how much control he had over the situation. I mean, I'm watching him attempt to talk to his son who's on an iPad and currently playing a video game or something, and he's like, "Hey, you need to get ready to go to fucking Scouts or whatever it was," and the son's just sitting there going, yeah. Like he's not fucking listening to his dad at all.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if that's how he's reacting, and he's younger than she was, I can't imagine that it was any different for her. And if she's up in her room and doing this, in order for your like idea of how much control you had and how much openness you had in your house to work, you'd need to be going into her room like every 5 minutes and like looking at her iPad to see what she was fucking doing. And I severely doubt you had the time to do that with like 2-3 other fucking kids in the house.
And also, if you're doing that, you're setting your kids up to be seriously enmeshed with you, which isn't healthy in the slightest.
No, it's definitely not. I honestly think that this is not something that you can blame on parenting. It's not something you can blame on the internet. It is something that, like, going through the lives of these kids, I think a lot of it had to do with their social situations at school, because Anissa was shown to be very unpopular and very estranged and seen as very odd. And she sort of, in a way, when she did gain like the small group of friends that she did, like the 2 other people who accepted her into their lives, they themselves were also estranged to a very large degree. So at least, and this is just a hypothesis from me, but I'm pretty certain that probably what happened is that Anissa saw herself as very odd and strange, and she saw the other people that actually accepted her as very odd and strange. So she sort of thought of her oddity and strangeness as being a good thing, something that set her apart from everybody, but also made her a little bit better, because there's a segment in the documentary where they're going over like her search history on YouTube and her commenting and all that, the different videos that she would watch. There's the videos like, if you answer this question correctly, you might be a psychopath, and she's commenting under it, being like, I answered it right, I'm a psychopath, LOL. And that's something that she did multiple times, and she was watching videos of like fucking a cat just beating the shit out of a mouse until it died, and just going, I thought that was hilarious. And
so she tried to adopt the persona of a different person or an outsider, and she tried to adopt that for herself instead of like true outsiders. Well, I think she was a true outsider, but she wanted to consciously internalize it and make it part of her identity. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. Especially since the core psychologist that they appointed for them basically said, I see no mental issues with Anissa whatsoever. They were like, does she have psychopathy? Does she have sociopathy? Does she have any of these different conditions or any symptoms? And he's like, I see no symptoms in her whatsoever of any mental disorder. So she's definitely different from Morgan on that level, like extremely. Whereas with Morgan, I think her estrangement from other people might be a part of it, but I also think that her intense schizophrenia, and I don't mean to say that schizophrenia is going to cause you to go kill people. That's not what I'm saying.
But that mixed with the oddness and the kind of being cut off all the time.
That mixed with not having many friends, that mixed with it being like a part of her life, that mixed with it not being medicated, with her not seeing anybody, it never being diagnosed. These things can lead to a long circumstances of events that lead you to accept the validity of something horrific as being real, because your delusions are so strong and you're not being medicated or anything. And that can sort of drive you to do something you wouldn't otherwise do. And I do think that if she got help early in her life to help just manage her schizophrenia, I think she would have been fine. But
yeah, because she said in the interviews with the detective that she didn't want to kill her friend, but she felt she had to.
Yeah, she even said in the interview, she's like, I think it would have been good if I was locked up before I did it. I really wanted to be, so that I didn't have to hurt her. And it's like, what do you mean you had to hurt her? Well, I don't know. I just had to. It's like,
yeah, she was
just so weird.
And the slumber party, the get together that the three girls had. The night before, she described it as, I wanted to give her a good night before she died.
Yeah. I think the mum even comments how just it was like a typical kind of just preteen slumber party they had. And they were all laughing and joking and giggling and all that. And
they even had a picture from it, which was them at the roller rink, when they were all just kind of like sitting there on like a bench, and they just look like normal kids who were just having a fun time.
Is there one picture just before they leave the house? Is there?
I don't think there was, but I do remember very explicitly. I think it was Anissa. No, it was Morgan who said that she grabbed a knife from the kitchen before they left.
Right.
Yeah, and
So that's where they got the knife.
She showed it to Anissa, and then at that point, Anissa said, "Oh my God, this is really happening." That the showing of the knife is kind of what made it real for her, according to what was said in the documentary.
Yeah. Which it's difficult to comment on this without like a psychological background or a sociological background or anything like that. But I don't think Anissa I don't think that she would have done this necessarily without Morgan, but I also don't think Morgan would have done this without Anissa.
Yeah, it's one of these perfect storm situations. So do you think even if Slenderman hadn't been, like, say this was the pre-internet age, this would have still happened? They would have just latched onto some other myth or legend.
It may have been. The idea I had in my head was I don't remember which one's mother it was, but they were talking about how they saw that their daughter was looking at horror stories on the internet, and they're like, well, I didn't think it was that odd because when I was 11, I was walking home from the library with Stephen King's It in my backpack, so I enjoyed some horror stories at that level too. So my immediate thought was, if we didn't have Slenderman, would it just be like It or something like that? Would it just be some other horror story like creature that they might have been drawn to? That would have encouraged this, at least to their heads.
That's what I tend to think too, because there was one point in the courtroom proceedings where one of the caseworkers said that Morgan talked to Snape all the time from Harry Potter. So it could easily have been any other fictional character, either on the internet or in a book.
Yeah,
but even
because both of them were clearly readers, so. I don't think the internet made it so that made it too easy for them to read things.
Yeah, but the internet's given a lot of moral outrage or something to get really upset about here.
Yeah, but honestly, like I said before, I can't. Having watched through the entirety of this documentary, I can't really blame the parents all that much. Yeah, I will put a little bit of blame on Morgan's parents because they knew that. The dad was schizophrenic, and he was very much so. And so the idea of not taking your daughter maybe at a younger age to go see someone to make sure it hasn't developed in them as well.
Because does it run in family schizophrenia?
I believe so.
Okay.
There's at least some genetic.
Let me double check.
Yeah, just in case we get that wrong.
We're going to have somebody in the comments section be like, it's not genetic, you pieces of shit.
It doesn't matter what we say, there's going to be people saying that about every statement we made.
True.
It's the internet, so.
Schizophrenia genetics is schizophrenia hereditary. I don't know. Keep talking while I read on this.
But I think there is some kind of evidence that it does occur in families, whether it is genetic or not, but it can occur within several members of a family. They don't know how.
Even if it doesn't necessarily, it's still like if you're a person who developed it yourself and you have a child, it'd be something that you might check up on at the very least.
You would not want them to have it. Regardless of, it's just like any other illness. If you have it, you would be worried about your child having it as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the one thing that I think the documentary did miss out on was the reaction from the creepypasta community. That was kind of left out completely because they ran fundraisers for the victim and all that. Yeah, they did live charity streams and Kickstarters to send for our medical bills.
I'll say this: the creepypasta community is they're very close knit. I should say there's a lot of creepypasta narrators on YouTube. They all tend to work together to one degree or another. A lot of the writers tend to work closely with those people, so they're all connected as well. I mean, every once in a while, there's someone who does writing who just doesn't appreciate that. Someone else is taking their stories and reading it on YouTube for ad revenue and shit, and they're just like, this is bullshit. But generally, most of them are very close knit and very friendly with each other, and there's this understanding that these are just stories, and we're all reading these to just have fun together. And it's a community thing. So if something bad were to happen as a result, even tangentially, from creepypastas, they would definitely band together as they did to try and do something to mitigate the damage to some degree.
Yeah, it's not like you mentioned how they respond on 4chan to these things.
Oh yeah, but 4chan's completely fucking different. Let me
Well,
Yeah, the
4chan
creepypasta the creepypasta community held a 24-hour live stream on YouTube to raise money for the victim.
yeah.
Because I mean, nobody wants to hear that like their community or their fandom has done something terrible. So
it's just, and it's
you know,
to deal
when
with
you
it
hear something like that, you're like, okay, we're going to take some responsibility to do something about this. And I honestly, fair play to the entire community on that front, because that was definitely a good thing for them to do. And it's not the only time that they've done it either. Very regularly, usually around once a year, the narrators will get together and do some sort of like charity stream for something. So, you know, if anybody is not like aware of all the different narrators that exist, Mr. Creepypasta is definitely a good start. It's like one of the first ones I came across. Yeah. But a lot they do a lot of good work for each other. I haven't seen much of them lately, so I don't know if they're like still a thing or whatever, but they do have a lot of videos that they've done, and they're very good at, just on a slightly off point, but they're just very good at creating an atmosphere when they narrate the stories. So if you enjoy like listening to YouTube videos as like background noise and the like, that works for that. So I just recommend them in general.
So it's just like, I think some listeners might not be really, they'll have heard of creepypasta, but they're not aware. But the one thing is creepypasta, they're explicit in that everything they do is fiction, isn't it? And they quite
they're completely aware. And to be honest, with some of the stories, because all of these are written by amateurs. These are not like professional writers. But for a lot of these stories, it's kind of obvious that it's not real. Even when they're trying to make it sound like it's real. Like, I think my favorite one to laugh at is Squidward's suicide, because it's just so bizarrely stupid and silly, and because the basic premise of it is that there's just this cursed video of SpongeBob SquarePants running around that got fucking played during the final edit, I guess, for like all the producers and the like, and it showed like these terrible, scary images of like blood and gore and Squidward eventually killing himself with a shotgun and shit, and everyone being like, oh, this is kind of crazy. Like, this is clearly not real. But, and it's bizarre.
But like I said, see with the stabbings, I don't think the parents bear any ill will towards creepypasta, do they?
Probably
it didn't come across at all. They did. They were. I know the question never seemed to be asked of them, but I didn't get that impression from the way they spoke.
I know. I can't remember which mother it was, but one of them did say that they saw the creepypastas as just scary stories on the internet.
Yeah, like I said, it was like her reading Stephen King stories when she was little.
And there was a brief moment when Morgan's father mentioned in passing that he cares more about Morgan than he does for Slenderman. And so interpret that as however you might.
Yeah, because I'm pretty certain, because I know the way that these documentaries are done, where they're asked questions and then the question itself is just kind of like edited out and then they just record the answer. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the question was, so how do you feel about the relationship between Slenderman and your daughter? Yeah. And I think it was what was the other girl's name? Not Morgan, but
Peyton Lautner was the girl who was
no. Not the victim. The Morgan, Peyton, and
Anissa.
Yeah, it was Anissa's dad who said that. And I'm pretty sure that he was asked that question, and his immediate response, he didn't even look at the camera when he said it. He was just kind of looking out a window, and it looked like something out of a professional movie, honestly, where he was just like, I don't really care about Slenderman. I care about Morgan.
Oh, yeah.
Morgan, Anissa.
Yeah. I accidentally said Morgan's father as well. So
Yeah. It was a really well shot scene, honestly. It could have come out of a movie.
But then there's the other thing with some of the interviews in this. There's a quite wide variety of, well, I don't think some of them are experts, but people in the field. Because Richard Dawkins turns up, and I was really kind of got a shock when I saw him.
It's like, what the fuck are you doing here, Dawkins?
But then I realized, you're the one that actually came up with the idea of memes in the first place.
Yeah.
So you are quite a relevant person to ask.
It was really interesting to see Richard Dawkins come up on Skype, and then like a few seconds after him, alternating back and forth, this youngish looking guy who is kind of
I think that's
I swear to God,
Brad Kim.
One of the one of the people had a title that came up under them very briefly, and it was like digital mythologist of some sort.
Digital
PhD digital mythologist.
It was a digital folklorist.
Yeah. I was like, that's a thing.
And
I'm sorry, I couldn't handle it.
That appearance on the documentary is probably the only thing he got from that degree.
Yeah. I'm like, I didn't look him up, but I really wanted to at the time because I had to pause the video after I saw PhD digital folklore.
I actually think it's a really fascinating idea. You could look at folklore from the past, even from the ancient past, and compare it to modern day folklore, which is what creepypasta is.
In a way, it's also ridiculous to us because the internet is still very young. But in 100 years, a digital folklore.
Yeah, it'll make sense. I'm not gonna knock the guy at all. I just thought that's just the first time I've ever seen that.
Because I just pictured him in the background with a big hardback copy of Encyclopedia Dramatica that's you read.
I think the most interesting educational part of the documentary to me was when they were talking to the literary critic who sort of compared Slenderman to the Pied Piper.
Oh yeah, that was because then
that was a very good parallel that he drew there between the two characters. The way he told the story, it didn't ever occur to me before. I know the Pied Piper story, but it never occurred to me that they were that similar.
Yeah, because I've actually a friend who goes by the name Slendy. Strangely, we all know him. He kind of hides in the background. He's big into all of this. And then when I told him about the document, they compared it to the Pied Piper. He was like, no, they can't do that. That's just... I said, well, think about it. And then he was like, yeah, when you actually think about it, they're quite similar. And it's actually quite a fairly common theme in horror stories like the Friday the 13th movies. You know, he's taking revenge on the children because they ignored him and all that. So taking revenge on children's a very common theme in horror.
Yeah, because and there was this goes into another fictional piece of media that a lot of people may be familiar with. Not sure about you guys, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer actually had a whole episode covering this theme, which was this the plot was basically that there was this creature who has existed since fucking the Grimm fairy tale times, who was the original inspiration for Hansel and Gretel, where he would convince all of the adults that the kids are in danger because of some nefarious creature or person that exists in their community, and he would get the adults to just gather around and just burn them as being witches or some shit. So the idea of threatening children is so much more horrifying to a lot of adults and than just threatening their own lives.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a main reason why I think horror does that in the first place.
I mean, is it this whole faceless thing? Is that the reason why Slenderman has caught on out of all the creepypastas? He's kind of synonymous with it now in a way.
I mean, I think effectively that's why it's happened. Because if you look at all the other iconic creepypasta characters, Jeff the Killer, for instance, or
the Rake,
or anything like that, there's not a whole lot about them. I mean, Jeff the Killer, there's a lot about him, but he's kind of fallen off. But Slenderman has always been the main constant.
Yeah.
And I think that's mainly because no matter what you write about him, even if it's the cheesiest, dumbest story, there's always another story to complement it that still keeps him interesting as a character because he is so vague. Whereas with Jeff the Killer, for instance, he's very much explored. He has a whole story about his backstory, how he became what he is. He's basically just this emo kid who fucking got injured and now he's a killer and he's crazy. And there's a bunch of stories that humanize him and shit. There's no stories that humanize Slenderman. All of them normally keep him as a force of nature more than a person.
Yeah, and the more vague he is, the easier it is to keep him as a constant. Because as soon as you, as I alluded to earlier, as soon as you define him, give him edges, so to speak, then he's more short-lived than he is as a vague force of nature, like you said. And that's the case with the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Neither the readers of the story nor the people in the story knew whether he was a good guy or a bad guy, because whether he was rescuing the children from something or whether he was snatching them away for a nefarious purpose.
Yeah. Or if he was snatching them away as payment, but nothing bad was even going to happen to them. Like, it was very much left up to the interpretation of the reader what was going on with him taking the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even the fact that he doesn't even have a name. He's just the Pied Piper of Hamelin. He doesn't have an actual, like, identity.
Yeah, I don't think he's even physically described in the story, is he?
All that's said in the story is that he looks odd.
Yeah, and that's the same with Slenderman. We just know he doesn't look right. That's it. Until you project.
he just looks wrong.
Yeah, and just everyone projects onto that what they want to.
Plus, Slenderman's the only one that's actually had video games made about him, so that became kind of a thing for a while. Just watching people play his weird ass games.
He's now getting a movie made, isn't he? It's coming out.
Oh,
next year.
There's been so many movies made about Slenderman.
No, but this is this is Hollywood movie.
Like a legit Hollywood movie?
Yep.
I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, I've heard about it too. I think that'll have the effect of taking some of the mystery away.
Yeah, because Hollywood gets shit wrong a lot.
Yeah. And it's actually, from the last I heard, it's going to be a found footage movie.
Oh, good.
Yes.
You know what's weird about that? You know what's funny about that? All the other independent movies made about Slenderman that you can find like on YouTube or like any other fucking website, they're all lost footage movies.
Yep.
So
you can just imagine this is going to be a copy and paste and patchwork of them.
Yeah.
They're going to take what they think are all the good bits and
This is gonna make it terrible. I can already see it fucking coming. Hollywood, must you ruin everything that is good? Oh God, it's gotta be.
Back to the movie. There is another scene which kind of stood out, and that's when is it Morgan's family? They call her while she's in the detention center. That was quite bizarre scene to watch.
Oh, that was Lisa's family.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it wasn't even just her family. Like, they also invited one of her former inmates to come over and talk to her.
Yeah, like I say, it's actually quite amazing in this film how much access the documentary makers seem to get to the families. And I would have thought most families involved in this would just avoid the media completely.
Which is kind of why I think the victim's family didn't appear at all.
Yeah,
like they didn't want anything to do with this.
Yeah, but even usually the perpetrators' families don't want to get involved in these things either. But the level of access they seem to have into the families is I've never seen that before in a documentary covering anything of this nature.
I think maybe the families had felt a need to
tell their story,
tell their story, to vent, to explain themselves, and to put a human face to themselves to the public. I think they felt that need, and that's why they got that kind of access.
Yeah, but I think usually in these cases, like, their lawyers would have just told them, no, don't do this, avoid it. I think in a lot of cases it usually just turns out bad for the families, but the documentary, to give them a lot of credit, they handled it with a lot of
finesse.
Tact, I would say. They were very tactful in how they handled the families. Because I can't really see they made the families out to be, what a lot of folk would have probably hoped for is they made the families out to be just completely dysfunctional, and there we go with quite an answer.
Well, the filmmakers did the right thing by keeping their voice completely out of it and not inserting themselves into the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't go with like a narrator definitely helped on that front too. Like, I am very much a fan of documentaries that don't fucking use the crutch of a narrator to try and explain everything.
Oh yeah, me too. They had the same approach and style with the Paradise Lost trilogy that HBO documentaries put out, and that was about the West Memphis 3. And the first film in that trilogy, Paradise Lost, actually affected the course of the trial. Right. That's how good their investigation was on the HBO investigation.
Yeah. Even I'll have to ask you this question. Even like as an investigative piece, this documentary, do you think it was up to standard in your view? Well, you're the journalist on the team.
I think the main journalistic value in this was the access to the interviews they got, like with the detectives. And I don't know how much of it was investigative, really. It was just kind of they revealed what was going on. Yeah. And there was nothing really to uncover so much as there was stuff to show, and they got the kind of access that most journalists would die to get.
Yeah, but like
there wasn't like any new information you couldn't just Google. But
yeah, but I think sorry, Nathan. What I more mean is, did they present it in like in a good way for you as a journalist?
Oh yeah,
like the whole presentation.
They kept their commentary out of it, and so it was nothing can be completely unbiased. Like no matter how you present something, even if you keep your voice out of it, whichever way you present it on screen is going to be biased in some way, however subtle. But they really minimized the bias element, and it was just show, not tell, all the way through. I think it did have a healthy respect for facts over opinion, and so I think it was a good journalistic film.
All right, cool.
I think just as like a cinematic piece as well, it was very enjoyable to watch, and the ways in which they framed a lot of their the way in which they framed their framing devices, because that's not redundant as shit. But the framing devices that was used in the documentary were very very telling, because like every time that there was like an that they were showing sort of the surrounding internet culture around what was going on, they made it very clear that there's like a mouse clicking in the background that you can hear. There's the actual internet pages with it looks like you're actually viewing it on a computer, and with all the interviewees that they interviewed them over Skype,
and even showed the Skype screen starting up and dialing in.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool. It was just like, oh, I'm actually getting into a call with all these people. Yeah, it was really good.
Richard Dawkins was there going, oh, the Skype has started. Okay, ask the first question.
Yeah, he's like being an old man about it. Have we started? Has this begun?
Like we all know the Skype conversations you have with your parents are 5 minutes of, can you hear me? Are you there? Is this on?
Yeah. They even showed those beginning moments for like each of the people that they called were, and it just, I don't know, that made me laugh a bit. I like the idea of not just like having the experts that you're talking to just sort of like fade in with their opinions on shit. I like the idea of just like showing the very beginning where they're just trying to get everything set up technically, just for a moment where it's like, I can't hear you. Can you say something real quick? Hold on. I love that.
Because it's like, even seeing Dawkins doing that, it just helps humanize him a hell of a lot.
Yeah. It's not just some random expert on the screen where you're just like, oh, I guess you exist now.
The Know Your Meme guy, who's part of the knowyourmeme.com website, he's there going, oh man, my Skype's just not having it today.
Yeah. It's just not having it. Maybe it's on my end. I don't know what's going on, honestly.
I'm saying that he was quite interesting as well. I can't remember his name off.
It was Brad Kim, I think.
Brad Kim, yeah. I knew it was Kim. I didn't want to get into, I can't remember Kim or something. That could have got me into really sticky water here if I'd said that. But yeah,
are you just saying that because he's Asian?
Yeah. We could have gone down that path very easily there. But no, like you said, what he had to say was quite interesting about just internet memes in general. Because they had it alongside what Dawkins had to say about, I don't know, shall we call it the classical version of memes as he had them.
Yeah, it was funny watching Dawkins talk about Slenderman as a meme, where he's trying to like frame it in a sort of academic way where he goes, it meets the conditions of being able to perpetuate itself among other people once it enters the mind of one.
Yeah,
to me,
it's sort of like
it's like the whole time you're talking about Slenderman.
Yeah, it'd be like me trying to getting up on an engineering presentation explaining all the forces involved in twerking. It's just twerking, boy. Yes, and this reactive force on this cheek and other.
Oh, fuck. But yeah, I think all the experts that they had on board, they were all very relevant to what they were talking about, and all of them gave valuable insight on it. It was very educational, I feel.
Oh, definitely.
I think all of us to a certain extent understand the concept of memes, at least as far as the internet is concerned, but to actually like understand it on a deeper level to know how it spreads, how it becomes popular,
the societal
sort of
kind of thing.
Yeah, how it affects societies and the like. That to me is also very interesting, and that's not something that most people I think are aware of.
Yeah, because We recently had that, like Pizzagate's kind of an example. Would that be an example of a meme that spread and just got out of hand?
I think so, but then again, I'm not entirely certain.
I think there's a distinction to be made between memes and, say, urban legends.
Okay.
Urban legends are a little bit more complex and have more ideas in them to grapple with, and memes are just kind of short, succinct ideas that can be transmitted easily from mind to mind instantaneously.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
As Dawkins pointed out, the reason why Slenderman he would consider to be a successful meme is because you just need to see the picture and you know everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Like Pizzagate needs to be explained to people.
Yeah, you can't just say, because I know vast majority, if I walked in the street right now asking them about Pizzagate, they would just watch.
Be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, there's a pizza down at the gate.
To be fair, if you walked up to someone and was to some random person on the street and you were like, do you know about Slenderman? They might not know what you're talking about, but if you show them a picture of Slenderman, they'd be like, I know that. And they might even understand a lot of the lore that goes with them just from the picture, even if they haven't read any of it, because a lot of it is what people come up with the first time they see the picture.
And I think it's probably something you could even show to your grandmother and she would just get it straight away.
Yeah, because you notice in the documentary, every time somebody was describing the mythos of Slenderman, there were pictures accompanying it, and every single bit of trivia about Slenderman was shown in single pictures.
Yeah. Like they could have told the entirety of what was being explained with just the pictures and you'd get it. Mm-hmm. Which I guess that does say a lot about just art in general as a concept, more than it just does simply the meme status of Slenderman. But the fact that you can just see a picture of Slenderman and know what it's about is definitely what makes it meme status, at least as far as Dawkins and the way he explained it.
Yeah, because like to use superheroes again, like, so Spider-Man, folk just kind of get Spider-Man just looking at him, whereas I would probably say something like Deadpool, that needs to be explained what Deadpool actually is. But Spider-Man's just so simple. That could be, that's just the best example I can think of from superheroes.
Maybe give Deadpool time and then Deadpool will become iconic. I think Deadpool's already starting to become iconic.
Well, I think movie going to be coming out.
But like I said, if you look at the standard picture of Spider-Man swinging through New York, it pretty much explains itself.
Yeah.
Whereas the standard picture of Deadpool just standing there, what's that exactly? It does take a bit of explaining what Deadpool is.
Yeah, I think after his second movie, though, and maybe in more time, he'll just become such a huge cultural phenomenon that like your average person will just know what Deadpool's about.
I mean, so would you say the superheroes qualify as memes?
I think Superman does. I think Captain America does.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things. If you reference Superman in a conversation with your grandmother, or your grandmother might mention Superman.
Yeah.
Like you might ask her, did you do this today? And she might say, well, I'm not Superman, And she might have never she'll never have watched Superman or read a comic, but the idea is there in everyone's head now.
Well, yeah, the idea of memes is in everyone's head, and everybody, as we mentioned before, everybody kind of knows and understands what a meme is. I wonder if before the internet age, whether there was anything that was, the equivalent of a meme prior to the internet.
Well, I think even prior to the internet, because Superman's been around since the 1920s. I'm pretty sure last time I checked, and I think by the late 40s, him, Captain America, and a couple other superheroes were basically used all around America to just like build up patriotism and the like. So at that point, they became so household that you couldn't not know who they were.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think on that level that might be the case, as far like because Dawkins actually coined meme, I think before the internet. So like he already had a concept in mind. He was already identifying a thing that existed.
I think another one would be from movies of something like Jaws.
Yeah.
Like the word Jaws or the theme music, that just folk know what that is straight away. It's implanted. It's very, like I said, just something very simple and trigger. Like you play the Jaws music, people think of sharks straight away.
And that's how you get crazy ideas like the Mandela effect, where people think they know something so well that they actually are misremembering what it actually is. And I think that's also the Mandela effect. I think has some application in talking about memes in terms of how memes change over time and have a kind of a rapid evolution, and people take memes to heart so much that whatever incarnation they're remembering, they instinctually think it's been a constant, and so they apply that to that supposed phenomenon can happen with iconic historical figures as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that's kind of pre-20th century that would classify as a meme that's lived on. I can't really think of any at all. Does any come to your mind, Lundy? Like even older, like pre-cinema, is it literary memes that are just carried on?
Well,
there was the yellow kid in 19th century newspapers, which became associated with yellow journalism, which was one of the earliest incarnations of sensationalism in news media.
But no, I think one just has come to mind. A lot of Greek mythology, the phrases we have in everyday, like Achilles' heel.
Yeah.
Most folk don't know who Achilles was or what was the problem with his heel, but
we understand what that means.
Yeah, and it's
of that fact.
And and the word again, we know what it means. Straight, the image pops into our head. Or I think that definitely qualifies one.
I'd say that definitely qualifies. A lot of the mythology that's sort of like lasted throughout the years. Yeah. The reason why it's lasted so long and it's been so prolific is because of its meme status, I would say.
Yeah.
It lends itself so well to easy transfer between people. If you just say the Pied Piper, like not a whole lot of people I think like actually have heard the entire story of the Pied Piper, but we all think of the dude going around with his pipe and rats following him.
Yeah.
It's been so endemic in all of our media in general. Yeah. Like even just early television, like Porky Pig in black and white, fucking with a pipe and a mouse.
So like Jesus Christ might be the most successful meme in history.
Yeah, I would say that he would definitely be up there.
Well, yeah, I mean, he does trigger an image in your mind. It's kind of it doesn't bear any resemblance to what the historical figure would be, but yeah.
My immediate image in mind whenever I hear of Jesus is Buddy Christ from Dogma.
Right.
Yep.
That's the first thing I think of.
I think one piece of fiction that had some great memes was 1984. There are loads of phrases from that everybody uses, and if no
one uses correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
But I say, well, that probably makes it very interesting meme on its own. Then it's been propagated.
I guess the fact that everyone knows the words and they know what they think when they use the words, but they're not the right way to use the words.
like Big Brother and Newspeak, and even the word Orwellian itself.
Oh my God! Tell half these people that Orwell was a socialist, and they'll fucking lose their minds.
It's a sign of our times that when the word Orwellian is used in an unwittingly Orwellian way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's used to silence people. It's like, well, that's interesting.
You fucking Orwell.
It's become a meta meme in a way.
Yep.
So I don't know. Shall we wrap it up there, Nathan? We've been rabbiting on quite a while.
Yeah.
I think we got most of everything involved in all the main points anyway.
Yeah, and I don't know if we want to wrap up in any nice way or anything, or if we just want to
other than just to say to everyone, just you can find a documentary on YouTube if you want to go. We'll link it down below, and we do thoroughly recommend it. Like I said, it's very unusual for us to review something on this show that we actually really enjoyed, and it's only because it's done in such a way. It's very thought-provoking, this documentary, and it's unsettling and it's fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, one thing I loved about it is that there's absolutely no filler in it, even though it's 2 hours long. And every time I sit down to watch a 2 hour long documentary, I'm kind of reluctant to, because most documentaries that are 2 hours long just have a lot of filler in it. This had zero filler in it, and I was engrossed in it the whole entire way through.
I'll say this just as a side note. You should go and watch Red Letter Media because they did a video recently.
Oh yeah.
Saying did Red Letter Media create Slenderman?
Yeah.
It's actually quite funny because they say at the start, this is our new ongoing series of which this video will be the only one ever. They're actually showing years ago there was like a kind of horror movie they made, and there's a hell of a lot of similarities with it. They're just pointing it out. So yeah, that's worth checking out. And it's also just Red Letter Media, so we always recommend them highly here.
Also, this is entirely irrelevant to Slenderman in general, but there's a biographical film that I really loved that I found on Netflix called Christine. Highly recommend it.
Is that from the Stephen King novel?
No.
Okay.
I watched a good part. I haven't watched it all the way through. I only watched a good part because I just had and I am going to watch the rest of it, and that could be a good future review, that one, because it raises a lot of issues on its own, that.
It's basically it's an autobiographical film about it's not a biographical film about a woman named Christine who was a reporter in, I can't remember exactly where it was. I think it was down in Florida. I knew it was in Florida. I can't remember where in Florida.
It's Christine Chubbuck, I think her name was.
Yep, and she kind of made national headlines because she walked in on the broadcast that was going on, sat down in the desk that she doesn't normally sit at because she basically just was like, can I just read the news for the first time? Because she was usually just a reporter who was reporting on things that happened around instead of like the actual anchor woman. Uh-huh. And so they gave her the one shot to just go out and do it. And in the middle of her reading the news, she went, and in the spirit of giving you the latest in blood and gore.
There's one thing there was a report she was meant to go to, but the feed wasn't working.
Right. There was a report of a shooting that had happened, and there was supposed to be like a news feed to go to, but
that didn't go to. And then she went into, you carry on what you said.
And then she went into, in the spirit of bringing you the latest blood and gore, we are proud to introduce you another national news first, live suicide. And she takes out a gun and shoots herself in the head on live television. And this film basically goes into the events leading up to that moment.
Yeah.
And it's very big on depression, on how it manifests, on her life in particular, and how she had no support network in the slightest. And even the one person who even tried to do something for her was basically doing this. He invited her to this weird pick yourself up by your bootstraps seminar, basically, which was basically, it was him going to this place, bringing her there. And the entire idea behind the seminar was just, what do you not like about your life? Well, I don't like this. Why don't you change it? Because I need to do this. Why don't you do it? Because it was really like, if I was there, I'd slap the person asking me these questions in the face.
It sounds like the old kind of people who don't really have a clue about depression just say, don't be depressed.
Right.
Why don't you just fix your life?
Why don't you just cheer up, snap out of it? Yeah.
Oh. It's a really great biographical film. I highly recommend it. It's not relevant to this at all, but it does. it's a decent commentary on depression in general. And as a person who suffers from depression, I really appreciated what it had to say about it. I found it very tasteful.
I think we'll review that one. That would be a good one.
Yeah, because
I think that would be good. I would come back for that one.
Yeah, depression is part of my life too, so it'll be very relevant to all of us.
It'll not only just be depression, but it'll also be talking about the 1970s local news industry and how reporting and the like was encouraged to be done in very particular ways to gain ratings, as opposed to.
And also because it also crosses over with a really brilliant film called Network.
Oh yeah, I was about to mention, or I was thinking while Lundy was talking about Network and how they took that idea of killing yourself on screen, and the character in that fictional movie used that as a ploy to raise his ratings. But then it's satirical, and the network executives actually hatch a plot to kill him because they can't fire him because if they fire him, their ratings will plummet. So they hatched this conspiracy to murder him, and it's very satirical yet very on point about news media.
And not only was it very on point about news media in the day, which Christine, the biographical film, goes over in great detail, but it's also extremely prophetic. I think probably the most prophetic Hollywood film I have ever seen in how modern media works, in how the development of the 24-hour news cycle and personalities as opposed to reporting, like how all this sort of developed. And Network, fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what the hell you're doing.
It's one of my personal favorite films, and I find it hilarious when conspiracy theorists on YouTube quote it.
Yeah, 'cause they don't understand what they're doing. Oh my God. Like, okay, so what you're doing is you're quoting the corporate puppet whose anger was being used to gain ratings and to sort of soften the minds of the public in such a way that they easily digested the information he gave them, which was effectively useless. You're using the corporate puppet to be anti-corporate and anti-government and shit. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. It's like the people who use Orwellian as a fucking
Yep. Well, I guess on that note,
also just another wee side note to that. It's one of Charlie Brooker's favorite films, and that's a great recommendation on its own. That.
Oh yeah, it makes sense that Charlie Brooker would love that film.
Yeah, so we can wrap up properly wrap it.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll be back with another episode, hopefully on time.
Yep. I'll just have a quick word. There was a delay in getting the Satanism episode out, and that was down to me. I've been moving about, but I'm settled down now. I've got access to IT, so there will be loads of episodes. We're doing, as kind of, you won't recognize this, but we're doing a block load of episodes this weekend, and we're going to have lots of content. And we've got some really good guests coming up. We're actually going to do Star Wars and Star Trek science in 2 shows. So let the Flame Wars commence. Begun the Flame War has.
There you go. Okay, see you later, everybody.
All right, thanks very much.
Later, guys.
Thank you for listening to Trolling with Logic. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. If you love the show, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Supporting us at $5 or more per episode will get you access to exclusive, patron-only bonus content, early access to shows before everyone else, and other incentives. We are an amateur production, but with your patronage, we can help improve our audio quality and cover the costs for doing the show. We are grateful for anything you can pledge to the show. Go to www.patreon.com/trollingwithlogic to sign up if you are so inclined. We want to thank our 3 patrons who currently have chosen to support us. These patrons are Microbloganism, Josh at the Society for the Advancement of Science, and Avinash Kumar. Thank you very much for your support, which is helping us out. Thanks to you 3, we have now been able to hire a professional audio editor, so now you can all look forward to higher quality audio. If you have any suggestions for topics or guests you would like to hear on this show, let us know on Twitter or on our Facebook page. Show edited, mixed, and mastered by Giorgio Circus of Yellow Music and Sound.
This ain't the end.
Hello and welcome to Trolling with Logic, the podcast where we bring the hammer down on ignorance, pseudoscience, and unreason, or is it superstition somewhere in there, on a bi-weekly basis. I am your host, Nathan Dickey, and with me is Cal.
Hi, it's good to be back. It's been can't remember last time we've been on, but it is good to be here again.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple months, and we have veteran TWL member Lundy back with us again for this episode.
Always good to be back with my favorite people that I love to bullshit and call things stupid with. It's fucking fantastic.
I can't remember the last time I was on a show with you, Lundy. It has been years, hasn't it?
It's at least since one of our charity shows. I'm pretty sure that was the charity show we did 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure was the last time we were on together.
All right. Bloody hell.
Not that we don't still fucking chat every once in a while.
We still
It's just we haven't done this.
We haven't been on the show together.
Yeah, our show with Phil Ferguson was the first time I was on with Lundy. So
yeah, and it wasn't that great. Neither one of us had the slightest clue as to what the fuck he was talking about half the time.
I think it turned out well. I think it turned out all right at the end.
Yep. Yeah, I guess it was fortunate for us that he turned to an easier topic like atheism and away from the big adult stuff like money.
It's I am terribly sorry. I don't understand anything about stock markets and investments. I don't. Sorry.
When he was giving us that concordance-like quiz, let me ask you a question and see if you can figure it out. And we were both
nope. Weird thing is, I was actually kind of close with one of my guesses though, because he was like, "Do you want to know how much money that's going to amount to?" And I'm like, "I don't know, $1 million." He's like, 900,000. I'm like, "Oh."
Anyway, shall we go back on track then?
Yeah. So
yeah, sure.
Today we're actually talking about a good documentary this time, which is a rarity for us. Sometimes we watch good things and talk about them. Actually, this is the first
I'm probably going to preface this that it's easier to talk about bad ones because there's just so much to tear apart and analyze. And when you get a good documentary that you agree with, it doesn't really get you thinking. But this one did. It will make you think, and there's a lot of issues that arise from this documentary we're going to talk about.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to unpack. The documentary we're talking about is Beware the Slenderman, and it's a documentary that came out last year from HBO.
Repeat things that exist that are talking to her and saying things to her all the time. And so she was the one who actually believed that Slenderman was not only real, but that she had actually seen him and met him and he has spoken to her and the like. The other girl was more of the sort of assuming kind. She, as far as their motivations were concerned, she just felt like it was something, the stabbing of their friend was something that they just had to do to appease Slenderman.
Because she didn't personally, the other girl, Anissa, she didn't personally encounter Slenderman in any hallucinatory way. She just believed her friend, basically.
Right.
Yeah, I think because you see the interviews, I think the word they use is that they would be proxies for Slenderman if they carried. That's the word they kept using.
That was one of the stories that was going around. Actually, it was involved in a lot of different stories. It was kind of evolved into the canon of Slenderman around that time, which was that he would use normal people as proxies to do the things that he wanted he wanted accomplished. And they felt that if they killed their friend, then they would prove themselves worthy of being his proxies, and then they could go live with him in his mansion that exists that apparently exists somewhere.
No, they said it existed way out in the woods where they did this stabbing.
Oh, no. It was in the Nicolay Forest, which was a 4 or 5 hour drive away.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And they attempt films. A really good producer of real quality documentaries, in my opinion. And this particular documentary, Beware the Slender Man, is all about the Slenderman stabbing, which happened in May of 2014. So the story behind this is that in the city of Waukesha, Wisconsin, two 12-year-old girls lured another girl of the same age into the surrounding forest and stabbed her 19 times. And their motivation in doing this was, according to them, the fictional creepypasta wiki character Slenderman and the stories that were going around on the internet about this mythical character on the creepypasta website. And they took it to heart, took it very seriously, and believed that Slenderman is real and that he was, according to their account, he ordered them to murder this girl. And if they wouldn't, he would kill them and their family.
I should point out that only applies actually to the one girl, Morgan, because she believed she has, as will be gone over in the documentary, she has a severe schizophrenia, and that's developed since she was 3, and this caused her to believe that there are. It's difficult to comment on this without like a psychological background or a sociological background or anything like that. But I don't think Anissa I don't think that she would have done this necessarily without Morgan, but I also don't think Morgan would have done this without Anissa.
Yeah, it's one of these perfect storm situations. So do you think even if Slenderman hadn't been, like, say this was the pre-internet age, this would have still happened? They would have just latched onto some other myth or legend.
It may have been. The idea I had in my head was I don't remember which one's mother it was, but they were talking about how they saw that their daughter was looking at horror stories on the internet, and they're like, well, I didn't think it was that odd because when I was 11, I was walking home from the library with Stephen King's It in my backpack, so I enjoyed some horror stories at that level too. So my immediate thought was, if we didn't have Slenderman, would it just be like It or something like that? Would it just be some other horror story like creature that they might have been drawn to? That would have encouraged this.